I am fascinated by the fact that Kansas City government can't do anything quickly, except for when it comes to making sure ICE is not building a new facility in South KC. How about that? See, so they can move quickly when they want to. That's the caveat. 6:04, happy Friday. It is great to be here wrapping up the week on KCMO Talk Radio. Thank you to the Northland Pachyderm for having me out last night in, where was I? Staley Farms? That's right. Second night in a row up in the Northland. Jeez, it was great to be up there. But then as I'm driving home, I'm making some phone calls. I'm talking to different people about, what happened today at City Hall. And what we found out is that Kansas City, according to Mayor Lucas, took action, this is from his social media, to center our community's priorities in future development. A 5-year moratorium on mass detention facilities ensures our focus stays on building businesses, homes, and schools, not large-scale detention centers. The city passed a plan yesterday that basically prevents, in their eyes, ICE from building this facility that they want to build in South Kansas City. Now, the building's already there. Just to be clear, the building is already there, and based on some of the news reports out there last night, what basically the building is waiting for is a tenant. It's an empty building. So it's primed for something like this because the structure's there. You're not starting from the ground up. That's what makes it, I'm sure, appealing to someone like ICE to potentially have a facility there with upwards of 7,500 beds. But immediately, snap your fingers and boom, the Kansas City City Council, they're on it, man. They are not going to sit there and potentially let an ICE facility operate and open up in South Kansas City. They want no part of it. And you heard Jonathan Duncan, who is on the city council, represents parts of South Kansas City. He made it very clear yesterday when he was speaking, he's not having any part of this.
I think it's important that, the community understands where we stand on facilities that will harm our community. And we will continue to use, and I will continue to look for every possible lever at our disposal to ensure that we decide what is built in our city.
We decide. So the government is going to decide what is built and not built in the city. I see. And can someone explain to me how this harms the community? I mean, first off, here's how this would work, right? It's and at least my understanding of how this would work. It would not be just for people arrested in Kansas City. It would be a theoretical hub for ICE arrests that may happen anywhere around the Midwest. If they need an opening, if they need to transport somebody, if there is room here in Kansas City at this facility that they want to have opened up by later this year, then this is what they would use. This is where they would send them. What is harmful about that to Kansas City? I mean, I'm genuinely asking, whether you love the idea or hate the idea, what is harmful about it? You have federal law enforcement agents doing their job. It would have nothing to do with KCPD. It would have very little to do with anybody in Kansas City. I don't think most of Kansas City would even know that it was there and operating as an ICE detention center if it did open up later this year. So what exactly does that mean? How is it harmful to the Kansas City community? If anything, to me, it's a net benefit. For a town that hasn't had a jail in well over a decade, it's nice to see that somebody wants to build a detention center of some kind around here. Jeez.
Yeah, the property's the old Richard Gebauer Air Base there. So there's, it's just on land, so to speak. It's not in a neighborhood or near a school or anything. In fact, it's right across from the Honeywell nuclear facility.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, John, because you're right. If it's in the backyard of a school or something like that, or you got, some nice neighborhood around the corner, and God forbid you got people arrested by ICE sneaking out of the detention center, I could see where you might have a problem there. But that's not what we're talking about, to your point. It's kind of out there, middle of nowhere. mostly dead land, probably not making any money for the city. In fact, it's probably a drag on the city.
No, there are remnants of the facilities from the base that are still around there, and they're being repurposed for different things.
Yeah. Well, this sounds like a good thing to repurpose it for. Fed's kicking in some dough. So I just wonder, too, in talking to people last night, the legality of all this. Now, there are people on the city council, including the mayor. They are actual attorneys. But I had multiple people bring up the fact that, this is not legal anyway due to the supremacy clause. And you can't require them to do permits on any of this.
Yeah, and know that. And so, of course, the litigation bogs it all down.
Well,
right?
That may be what they're hoping
That's
for, to
the
your
game.
point, right? Yes, exactly. Similar to the redistricting in Missouri with Emmanuel Cleaver, this is all potentially really about buying time, getting things bogged down in the courts, and hoping that they can basically make it as difficult as possible for the feds to basically have them say, you know what, fine, we're going somewhere else. This is not worth the headache. Or just try to run out time on Donald Trump. That's the other thing they could be doing here with all this, right? There are two options and two avenues for the Kansas City, Missouri city government to basically try to get this thing out of there. And that's why they suddenly think about this. This news broke on Wednesday that ICE was potentially looking at this South Kansas City site for a big detention center. And by their city council meeting on Thursday, they had an ordinance, or I don't know if it's officially an ordinance or whatever. They got something they end up passing. I'm not going to get bogged down in the weeds of this whole thing. They end up passing this piece of legislation that basically tries to prevent the feds from building this ICE detention center in South Kansas City. That's the fastest I've seen them move in my 8 years. I mean, they have not done anything faster than they've done this. Turn this thing around in less than 24 hours, John. My gosh.
It took them longer to change the Paseo Street sign.
It did. Steven's on KCMO. Good morning, Steven.
Hey, how's it going?
Happy Friday, brother.
Happy Friday to you. One of the problems, I think, and I saw this back, that's why I moved to Johnson County like I did. We have people that elect to the city council that feel like that they make the decisions for the people. The people make the decision, not you. The next thing I want to point out is that when they have made decisions, look at what you got on 18th and Vine. Look at what you got at the T-Mobile Center. You're hoping to get a basketball team. You build a building. It didn't happen. Look at the other the store on 31st and Prospect, where they made the decision to open the store, and look where it went. So we need to make it clear that to him and other city council members that you are elected by the people, and we make the decisions as the people, not you as the person.
Well, here, let me, in fairness, push back on that, Steve, because you can't put like everything that happens in Kansas City to a vote, right? You just can't do it. And I guarantee you, if this went to a vote, the majority of Kansas City would probably agree with the city council on this, I hate to say. The question is, to me, what is the job of city government here? Is this even in their purview? Is this something they should have the ability to stop and prevent? And why is this suddenly top of mind for them, given all the issues that exist here in Kansas City? Suddenly, in 24 hours, they can turn this thing around. To me, it's more about their priorities or lack thereof.
Well, yes, you feel the pulse of the people, what they want, and not what you want, and that's what a lot of these guys do. They get in office, and they get this about what they want and not what people. AOC was a prime example of that. I know what's best. I'm going to make the decision. No, the people, the major decisions, the people, you find out what they want, and then you
listen, Stephen, you and I are simpatico here, but who elects these people? The people.
Well, if half information voters elect them, that's what they do.
Yeah, but I mean that's the system. I get it, my man, and have a great weekend. That's the system we've got. On the text line, hey Pete, how nice would it be if the city would have moved this fast for Chris Wells up in the Northland? Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. That's exactly right. Chris Wells is the 41-year-old father of four who was shot and killed by his neighbor on Monday morning. After years of headache and issues and 311 calls and all these other things they were having with this neighbor, Jeffrey King, all across the neighborhood, who was a menace to Kansas City residents. And everybody was finger pointing, KCPD, 311, the city hall. Everybody was pointing the finger at somebody else. And it results in a 41-year-old father getting shot and killed earlier this week. That is a great point on the text line, Karen. Thank you for it.
Something that I think that is in their purview is, again, we have a fire down at 18th and Vine at those abandoned apartments. And this time, this week, the hydrants didn't work. It's like the fourth or fifth fire there in the last year.
But don't worry. They're going to hustle and make sure ICE doesn't build a detention facility, right?
There we go.
But fire hydrants working? Whoa, what do you think we are? City government? Come on now. It's all about virtue signaling, baby. Let's go. 6:14, good morning. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. So coming up next, there was a piece of news that I got up in the Northland last night about this whole Chris Wells thing that we were just talking about that has not yet been reported by the media. And I will share it with you coming up next on KCMO. So last night, it was great to see many of you at Staley Farms. Beautiful golf club they've got up there. I was speaking with the Northland Pachyderm Club, and you can find them on Facebook. They've got a great organization up and running, led by Gary Smedley and Mary Hill and many others. And, you know, they're putting together a nice grassroots organization that's kind of combining or intended to combine Clay and Platte counties. And there's obviously a lot of similarities there between the counties, their growth, and trying to make sure that the future of the Northland is something that, you know, if you have traditional values and certain beliefs, everyone's on the same page. And I really think that combining Platte and Clay counties for an organization like this is a smart move because there's more in common than there isn't. So I'm up there last night. We're talking a lot about Chiefs and Royals. And tell you what, a lot of those folks up there emotionally are still pissed, but they're also looking at Kansas and saying, have fun with that deal. So there's two sides to it. But one thing that came up yesterday, I talked to obviously a bunch of people, and the Chris Wells story was one that got a lot of attention. And Chris Wells is the 41-year-old father of four who was killed Monday morning when he got into a fight with one of his neighbors who was a menace to the neighborhood for several years, this guy Jeffrey King. And, Jeffrey King ends up shooting and killing him. And, you know, it was just a tragic situation on Monday morning. So, and of course, I guess I should say allegedly for all of this, right? He's pled not guilty. But all this happens on Monday morning. And one thing that was told to me by a good source last night who I trust, Chris Wells's wife had tried to get a restraining order against this guy, Jeffrey King, this menace neighbor. And a judge up in Clay County turned it down. There was a no contact order, but they couldn't get a restraining order. And this ties back to one of the big problems we have, and it's not unique to Kansas City, it's around the country. We have these judges, they are very much radical judges. They are partisan judges. They are not interested in being tough when it comes to the rule of law, and they slap way too many bad actors on the wrist. It is very rare that you will get solid judges who just go out there and say, you know what? No. Just like I do with my little kids. You will get in trouble when you make bad decisions. There are consequences for your actions. We have too many judges who just have absolutely zero interest in doing any of that. And when I heard that last night, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. With everything this guy was doing to those neighbors up in the Northland, you're telling me that they couldn't get a restraining order against this guy? I mean, someone told me last night, who also was in the neighborhood, that this guy King was running off neighbors. The people that lived behind him moved because he was such a menace. But I get it. Not everybody can, right? I mean, if you bought your house anytime in the last 10 years and you got to 3% interest rate on your mortgage, you're going to pick up and go to a house with a 6% mortgage rate or whatever it might be right now. I mean, that's not easy and something everybody can do. So a lot of folks are kind of stuck in their homes at this point, just based on the cost of moving, the fact that rates are so high compared to where they were. I mean, there's a lot of reasons right now that people can't just pick up and move. Property taxes keep going up. And then you got this guy just destroying this neighborhood up in the Northland. And once again, dozens of 311 calls, dozens of KCPD calls. City council knows about this guy, and nothing is done. And then finally comes to blows with a 41-year-old father, and he ends up allegedly shooting him 13 times and killing him on Monday morning. It is so tragic on so many levels. And learning more about his story and what happened up there in the Northland, it just makes my blood boil. Because, my goodness, if there's anything, what I'm sensing here is a dad who loved his family and was at his wit's end. And you know what? If you're a father, if you have been a father, if you're a mother and you're fighting and trying to protect for your family, you hit that breaking point sometimes. You just do. And I'm sure there are things in hindsight everybody looks at in the story and says, well, maybe he was too much of a hothead. And I asked somebody that last night, and they said this guy was not a hothead. He was mild-mannered. He was pleasant. He loved his family. He may have just hit a breaking point because, once again, he felt like the city wasn't doing anything for him. As a law-abiding, tax-paying resident, when you feel like your city, your government, has completely let you down, I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying you get to that point. 913-408-7957. John is in Grain Valley. Hi, John. You're on KCMO. Happy Friday. Good morning.
Happy Friday to you, sir. Hey, Pete, this is part of a whole larger thing of it appears there is no consequence anymore. There is none. And it starts when you're younger and younger. Make a mess, don't worry about it. Mommy and Daddy will clean it up. You don't even have to help because Peppa Pig is on, and, well, we'd hate to disrupt Peppa Pig or Paw Patrol. Then as you go through life, it's always explained away. Well, it's not really your fault. Johnny was having a bad day today. Oh, really? Well, that doesn't fix the broken window that Johnny threw a toy through or whatever because Johnny was having a bad day. And then you just get these little timeouts. Oh, so I'm going to sit here and figure out what I did? I don't care. I did it. And now it just keeps growing and growing. And then you have people, like you said, hardworking, playing by the rules, doing the right thing. Okay, let me call the police. They said to do this. Okay, let me call Public Works or whomever. Oh, they said to do this. And you're doing the right thing and the right thing. And what happens? Nothing. Then you go over and talk to somebody. What happens? Nothing. And you do. You push people to a point where they're like, what's going to be done? And if the answer is constantly nothing, well, then somebody's going to do something. Now, granted, this thing has wrapped itself up, but it took the death of a father, and now Quentin Lucas? Oh, we have to find out what happened. Well, where were you with all your with all your local agencies saying you got to do something?
Yeah.
Or we need to change the law. It's always after something like this happens when people get up there and go, oh, my gosh, how is this even possible? Well, let's do a little reverse engineering, and we'll tell you how this happened, how it got to this point, how this poor man lost his life, and this guy's going to sit in jail hopefully the rest of his life.
He may get the
property will get cleaned.
Yeah, he may get the death penalty, man. I mean, it's crazy. An A+ reference there with Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol. You must be a grandparent.
Oh, good God! What do you want to know about K-pop demon hunters? Pete?
No,
I got it all.
No, we that's why we got rid of Netflix because of the K-pop demon hunter show. We dumped it.
Well, see, your parents, you can do that direct action. Grandparents, you got to deal with grandmothers.
Yeah.
Grandmothers don't want to upset grandbabies.
Well,
trust me, I know these things.
Thank you there, John. Have a great weekend.
You have a good day.
You too. Yeah, the K-pop demon hunter craze is one I don't get, but that made us cancel Netflix. Like, we're not going down this road. We're done. And Peppa Pig, I got sick of that show too. So we're done on Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig had a brief moment about 2 years ago in the house, and then Peppa got the boot too. So we're out on Peppa. Bluey is where it's at. Bluey's family friendly. I'll say that much. But that's a great call from John, and he's right. You know, my youngest, she's almost 2. She's now the rock star when it comes to cleaning up because she sees her older sisters cleaning up. I'm like, that's where it's at right there. That's it. It's funny how each one learns from the other.
Yep.
Yeah, real quick there, Bert and Polo. Got a minute, big guy. What's up?
Hey, Pete. Hey, I'm a problem solver, you know. I know how to fix this. Maybe the neighbors should have just identified that as an immigration detention center so they would have got that house cleaned up.
Oh, that's really good, actually, Bert. That's well done, man.
Hey, and I would like to know how Mr. Rogers, the Westward ward up there, how did he vote on this immigration detention center? That ought to tell you what kind of help you're going to get from somebody.
Well, Wes Rogers, you're right, up in the Northland, he voted with Quentin Lucas and everybody else to ban this detention center.
Exactly. And you know what? Maybe we ought to put some of this stuff in their neighborhood and see what they think.
Yeah. Bert, thank you, my man. Only Nathan Willett in the Northland voted against this ordinance yesterday to try to block an ICE detention center from being in South Kansas City. That's it. Coming up next on KCMO, oh my gosh, she's really trying to defend herself in Jackson County. We have the details next. I was waiting for the interview, and I'm not shocked it went to Woke 41 here in Kansas City. They got the exclusive with Gail McCann Beatty. She is the former Jackson County assessor who got blown out by interim county executive Phil Lavoda, who's going to be on the show this morning at 8 o'clock. We just got him added to the lineup this morning for 8:05 here on KCMO. And she is suing the county for $975,000, saying she was unfairly terminated by the interim county executive Phil Lavoda. Now, the problem is Phil did what Frank White should have done years ago. But Frank White stood by Gail McCann Beatty as people were getting taxed out of their homes across Jackson County with these awful assessments. So Gail sits down yesterday with Woke 41 and does an interview, her first interview since, of course, the lawsuit was filed. So all this stuff was lined up in conjunction, right? We're going to file this lawsuit for $1 million. Then we're going to run to Woke 41 and we're going to sit down for the interview. And right out of the gates, I'm listening to the interview yesterday, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You could not write the script if you tried.
Do you still stand by everything that you did in that office?
Absolutely. The reason why I was hired was because we had severe inequity within Jackson County, and we spent the entire time that I was there trying to correct that.
There's the word, the magic word, right? Inequity. Let's see how quickly we can say the word inequity to try to draw sympathy from a certain portion of the viewership on Channel 41. That's the name of the game. If you just say, I'm trying to solve inequity in today's political climate, what does that mean? I'm doing things for the right reasons. I'm trying to help the little guy. I'm trying to make sure everyone's paying their fair share. Inequity. That's the reason you use that word at any point in 2026. And it's the only reason you use that word in 2026. And for assessment after assessment after assessment, you had people on the verge of getting taxed out of their homes. But at least it was driven by the push for equity, John.
Well, accepting her story as the principal, then she failed at that.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Because, by the way, the people who were getting squeezed out of their homes were not people living off Ward Parkway. Okay? They could afford the bill. When we did, and we heard from caller after caller after caller, over 2 or 3 assessment periods. Every other year they do the assessments, of course, in Missouri and Jackson County. And we're fielding phone calls from either seniors who are on fixed incomes or young families who are just trying to get by. And they're like, my assessment is out of control. My taxes are going to skyrocket, because the assessment doesn't necessarily determine your taxes. But if your assessment goes up way beyond the value of your home, and then the cities and the counties don't reduce the mill levy, your tax bill is going up tremendously. And that's what you saw happen. So even that, to John's point, she failed at. because you had regular people to lower income folks who were like, I'm getting priced out of my home. It's not like it was some multimillionaire in, Loch Lloyd, or although is Loch Lloyd technically Cass County? You get the point. Off Ward Parkway, Lee Summit, whatever it might be, being like, whoa, I got this $1 million house and I don't know if I can afford it anymore. That's not who you were hearing from over the last few years. It was regular people. And then there was this from Gail McCann Beatty, the former Jackson County assessor who was fired by Phil Lavoda, telling Channel 41 this.
McCann Beatty believes she was fired for blowing the whistle on a plan to cap commercial property increases last year. She calls that plan illegal.
Unfortunately, the tax burden for all of these properties is now being pushed to someone else, primarily our residential property owners, and that's not fair.
New County Executive Phil Lavoda says he fired McCann Beatty to restore trust in government.
It had nothing to do with her blowing any whistles, or frankly about her performance of her duties.
Lavoda told reporters he won't settle the lawsuit, so Egan and McCann Beatty are preparing for a trial.
Is there anything that you'd tell people that you have done differently over the last 8 years, before going to trial?
There was nothing that I would have done differently because I believe that we followed the statutes.
Property owners will elect an assessor in 2028. Don't expect to see McCann Beatty on the ballot.
That is not my plan.
Charlie Keegan, KSHB 41 News.
Of course it's not her plan. She's not going to run for county assessor in 28. She wants her $1 million and she wants to go somewhere. That's it. And she'll give that huckster attorney a nice little cut and she'll be on her way. And thank goodness we have Phil Lavoda in there as the county executive, who's an attorney by trade. So he's not falling for any of this. And he's saying, we're not settling $1 with Gail McCann Beatty. On the text line, 913-408-7957, Pete, it's clear to anyone with a brain she was fired for cause she sucked at her job. There you go. Nice job. Well done on a Friday morning on the text line. I like that. That's exactly right. Well done there. That was great. 4385. Excellent work. So Phil Lavoda is going to be here at 8 o'clock. We'll get his reaction and response to all of this from Gail McCann Beatty. But remember, these lawsuits that get settled, well, it's your money. Whenever they settle a lawsuit, it is your money. The money doesn't just get printed by the county to settle a lawsuit. They're using your tax dollars to settle these lawsuits. So I am glad that Phil Lavoda is saying we're going to fight this. We're not settling with her, because that would be one of the all-time scams. The person who is as incompetent as Gail McCann Beatty was as the Jackson County assessor gets fired, it was long overdue, and then has the audacity to sue for $1 million? Only as a bureaucrat, only when you work for the government, do you even have the stones to try to do such a thing. Right? I mean, the rest of us are just like, you lose your job. Oh, crud, I got to go get another one. I got to start applying for gigs elsewhere. You lose a job in the government and you try to score a payday out of it.
That's when you get the raise.
Yeah. But nowadays, you get the raise and then you still get the settlement on the back end. And you try to figure out in some cases how to keep the pension. It's so insulting to private sector employees. 913-408-7957. Pete, was that reporter a teenager? What was that? No. He does a decent job. He does a decent job. Sounded young, but no, he does a decent job. He's all right. He's okay. All right. So I'm looking forward to having Phil Lavoda on the show coming up later in the morning at 8 o'clock. And our Feature Friday guest this morning is going to be Dayton Moore, former Royals general manager, is going to be here in studio at 9:05. And Katie Pavlich will be joining us. You may remember her from Fox News. Well, she is going to be on the show at 8:30 this morning. She starts her brand new show on News Nation at 9 p.m. Central Time Monday night. And she will join us to preview what that show is going to be all about at 8:30 this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. I saw this. Data shows the wind has quietly wreaked havoc on Royals hitters at Kauffman Stadium. A story on the Major League Baseball website last year looked at data from the previous two Major League seasons. It found that 67 would-be home runs were knocked down by the wind at Kauffman Stadium. Second on that list, Wrigley Field at 56. This is written yesterday in the Kansas City Star. And I'm waiting now for the Royals to be like, this is another reason why we need that new ballpark, all right? We can't have the wind knocking down these home runs. Come on now. So we find out this week, the Royals announced they're going to move in the outfield fences by 10 feet from the foul poles out to left and right center. Center field is going to stay where it has been at about 410 feet. The walls are also going to lower from 10 feet to 8.5 feet. I love it. It's going to be more action. It's going to be, a bigger plays, more home runs, more potential home runs being robbed. I love everything about it. And now we've got this story in the Star that, one of the reasons that they wanted to maybe move those fences in is because no stadium had more home runs knocked down by the wind than the Royals did at Kauffman Stadium.
How about that? Now, if they can refine that data, they can find out which row and seat is most likely to get a home run or foul ball. Then you can charge more, right?
Yeah, yes.
The very end seat is going to cost you more.
And here's what's interesting, too. So at Wrigley Field, the wind was also helpful at times, right? Like, theoretically, the wind is always blowing in different directions. So if you're saying, well, I had X amount of home run balls knocked down by the wind, how many home runs were aided by the wind? At the K, there were just 2 home runs aided by the wind and 67 would-be home runs knocked down by the wind. So that's
negative 65, right?
Negative 65. Number 2 on that list was Wrigley at negative 43.
Wow.
That's a huge gap.
That's crazy.
It is kind of a wind tunnel down there, though, by the bullpens and everything like that.
See, I've never really sat out there. I mean, I'll go out there with the girls during the game because they get antsy, right? And they want to walk around and go back there where the ice cream is, and they got the little play area out there. But I haven't actually sat in those seats in the outfield area before. So you're telling me it does get very windy out there.
Yeah, it does.
You just don't think about it, right? When you think about wind stadiums, you usually think about the stadiums that are by the water.
Right. Touche. Plus, you spend a majority of your time even at Arrowhead in the summer, but Royal Stadium going, man, I wish there was a breeze.
Yeah, that's what's weird.
When you get one, you don't say, hey, where's that coming from? Although occasionally you can look and go, wait a minute, the flag is going the other way.
That's a great point. So, I think about wind stadiums. I think about, San Francisco, right? That comes to mind, top of my mind. You'd think about maybe Boston, New York, Wrigley. I kind of understand that. Chicago. I never would have guessed Kauffman Stadium would have had and been the ballpark that has taken away the most home runs due to the wind and has also aided in only 2 home runs over 2 years. So this is now going to be John Sherman's next thing to try to move that ballpark. I mean, concrete cancer didn't get him very far. So now we got this thing going, maybe.
Maybe we can just pivot the whole stadium 50 degrees or whatever we need.
That's a cost-efficient way to do it there, John.
Sure.
I like that.
We'll just do a little foundation work, raise it right up.
Oh, my gosh. Happy Friday, 6:45. It's going to be a cold weekend. So be prepared to be indoors plenty this weekend. I'm already trying to spin my wheels on what we're doing with the girls tomorrow because we got a high of 20 degrees. My gosh. Yeah, it's autograph to 95819. Final day of that contest is today. So your final chances right now to go see Riley Green in California at Stagecoach, meet and greet as well. And Keatsman's show at 10:35, 1:35 during the Vince show, and 4:35 in the Guy Benson show. So Manny Abarca, who was on the show a couple of days ago, he's now the chairperson of the Jackson County Legislature. He decided to go down to this facility in South Kansas City and confront some, I don't know if they were ICE agents, but obviously they're federal agents who are touring the location of where the federal government is considering putting an ICE detention center. And it was clear this was all a play for attention and clicks. Now, Manny Abarca's entitled to do that, right? I mean, yeah, he's an elected official, but if he just wants to get social media attention and get interviewed by local TV, he's got every right to do that. And it was obvious to me that's what it really was about, because take a listen to KCTV5's reporting on this and what they had to say about Manny Abarca going down to this facility and confronting federal officials.
This is where County Legislature Chairman Manny Abarca says he was confronted by several ICE agents Thursday morning after hearing they were on site for a possible tour.
Do I have jurisdiction here? Go ahead, call him. Call PD.
He says this lasted 5 to 10 minutes until a supervisor realized who he was.
So a supervisor, after about 10 minutes, realizes who he is, which means he went into the situation trying to be a tough guy instead of saying, hey, my name's Manny Abarca. I'm a chairperson for the Jackson County Legislature. Hey, I'm just here to do my due diligence on behalf of my constituents. I kind of want to get some information on what you guys have going on. He went into it instead with a cell phone on, wanting to basically make these federal officials look bad, get them all wound up, and have it on camera. He didn't go into it being like, hey, here's who I am, here's why I'm here, I just want to know more. It was completely unnecessary, uncalled for, and frankly unprofessional for a local official. John?
Well, I'm with you. I would have thought if you're going to rep.
Yeah.
Represent. Step out and say it. Don't hide. He didn't get out of the car, Pete. Didn't roll the windows down. We didn't add that. So he was trying to do this sort of, yank me out of the car thing, maybe agitation. He didn't get out and represent like he should have.
Rip me out of this car, man.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to get ripped out of the car.
Right. So he held his ID up to the rolled up window.
Yes.
Even, right?
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly right. He wanted that moment, right?
Right. It's seemingly.
He wanted to basically get these guys all pissed off. I mean, he would have loved to have been ripped out of the car and thrown to the ground, right? I mean, which is, by the way, part of what he's alleged to have done to his wife. I just want to throw that out there.
We're gunning for theatrics there, basically, I think.
Yes, exactly right.
And I think he was trying to use his Hispanic background as a little bit of a
shield.
Sure, that's a prop too.
Yes, that's part of the props. Yes, exactly. There were many props used in this little stunt yesterday. And Mark, you had it first. You shared it on the KCMO Talk Radio page as well yesterday, and that was the first time I saw it when Mark shared it. And I'm like, what are we doing here? But you get the police officer, the federal officer, shining his light into the car, and it looks all tough and scary.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing here? What's the purpose of this? Right? What's the purpose of this? And at the very end of the post that Manny Abarca put up on social media, and I will give him credit once again, he came on the show a couple of days ago. It was a reasonable conversation. But at the end of his post on social media, he says here, local electeds must step up and engage. We cannot sit idly by and let things happen in our community. Today, I put my family's security on the line. By the way, he used the wrong families. Now, I get it. We all have typos. But he used families IES instead of family Y''S. And he says, what are you willing to do to sacrifice for democracy in America?
What are capital
Yes.
YOU?
What are you willing to sacrifice for democracy in America?
Well, I don't know. I could double park like you did, maybe. If that's, you go out and double park.
Yeah. And then he shares an emoji of the American flag and the Mexican flag. Who are you representing here? Are you representing America? Are you representing Jackson County, where you're an elected official? Or are you representing Mexico? Who are we representing here? You can't represent two. You can't represent both. It's impossible. You can't have the interests of two countries in play here. And by the way, what are we doing with the Mexican flag? It's not 2000 anymore, when the bulk of the people who were coming across the border were basically single Mexican men looking for some work. We have people over the last few years coming from all over the world. East Africa, Eastern Europe, all over South America, Central America. The notion that this is just about Mexico, that's like stuck in the George W. Bush era here, man. That's like pre-iPhone age if you talk about, it's just Mexico and America. No. You got third world countries all over the place who have poured into the country over the last few years because the border was wide open. To simplify this as the USA and Mexico is very disingenuous and just factually inaccurate as well.
His heritage is how he's inserting himself into this thing.
Well, I get it. I understand that's his heritage, but once again, that's irrelevant to the conversation. It's got nothing to do with anything. So I'm looking at this video and I'm like, what is the purpose? But of course, he got what he wanted. He got on local news, and now we're talking about him and the whole thing. So yesterday at City Hall, Kansas City, Missouri, they got right on this as well with this report that ICE is looking at this South Kansas City location for a detention center. And Jonathan Duncan, member of the city council, I think he's 5th District down in South KC, he said this yesterday during the city council meeting.
It's important that, the community understands where we stand on facilities that will harm our community. And we will continue to use, and I will continue to look for every possible lever at our disposal to ensure that we decide what is built in our city.
So I'm trying to figure out why this would harm Kansas City, why a theoretical ICE detention facility would genuinely harm Kansas City. If it's funded by the feds, if it's handled by the feds, if it's not a quarter mile away from a school, which it's not, what's the harm exactly? What's the downside? I mean, I guess if you're just doing political speak, you sit there and you say, well, this is harmful to the community. But why? Like, why? Why? If people who have broken laws, and the goal, obviously, is to obviously begin with the people who have actually committed violent crimes and happen to be here illegally. That's the top of the food chain, so to speak. That's what they're looking for right out of the gates. Why is it bad to have those people locked up, or at least in a holding facility for then deportation? Why? They can't answer it because it's all just political speak. They don't want to really answer it. They're not interested in answering it. But it sounds good, right? It sounds good. But it doesn't actually mean anything. Or in the words of Sharice Davids,
no one gives a shit.
You know? Seriously. These guys, it's like when you actually read their words, when you actually think about what they say, they're not making any sense, John. But that's kind of par for the course as well.
Well, absolutely. And if it's followed up with don't even get me started. Or, I think we both know what we're talking about. Or the turn and walk away. I can't have a conversation.
Oh, I know. Yeah, exactly.
Those are your three options typically.
Because when you can't win or even have the conversation, it's like, well, got another Nazi Gestapo on our hands here, whatever it might be. You just get the name-calling thing. That's it. On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, they don't want a jail in Jackson County. Why would they want an ICE facility? That's a great point.
Exactly.
That's an excellent point. Why would they want that? But now, if you're sitting here and you're a Jackson County, Kansas City resident, right? And you've got your own lawmakers going out there and badgering these federal officials and, having this little game to go viral on social media, you got to be asking yourself, is this the best we can do? Is it? You get these people in these super low turnout elections. No one knows who they are. And then they turn out to be just radicals looking to toot their own horns. And that's what you've really got here. That's it. And that's why if Missouri could do anything here in this legislative session, moving all of these elections to November, these city council elections and all these local elections to November, would increase turnout and then maybe make people care and focus a little bit more on who their city council members are, who their county officials are, because we can't keep doing this stuff in April with 8% turnout. And then, you end up with the bottom of the barrel, character-wise, on some of the people who are in charge. And it's not even about an R or a D and what's next to your name. The reality is Jackson County is going to be led by Democrats by and large. But if you get serious ones like Phil Lavoda, who's the county executive on an interim basis who's replaced Frank White, he's technically a Democrat, but he's a serious guy. He's had personal success. He's a business leader, a community leader. on these local officials, it doesn't really matter. The R&D is not like it is in Washington, D.C. It's more about who's a pro, who's a serious person, who's had a career, who's done something with themselves, and who can actually lead locally. And Phil Lavoda in Jackson County is a perfect example of some of the serious people we need to take over here locally.
It's around here since I've lived here all my life. The school board job and the city council jobs can typically be your entry to getting onto the government dole, if you will.
Well, that's exactly right.
And then you work your way from there. Then you just get in and start dog paddling and see where you can slide over to.
It's a grift. It's one big grift for these guys.
It's an entry-level position for that.
Yes, it's an entry-level position. That's exactly right. Because their skill sets are limited in the private market, right? In the private sector.
Right. Then you get on a cause and repeat talking points.
Yes.
And march up that flag.
And
or
then
up that
you
hill with your flag.
And then you can get one of these paid board gigs that exist that, pay you six figures for who knows what you end up doing. And it's all part of building a career where you actually produce nothing. That's the goal for a lot of them.
You are now an expert once you're fired or voted out.
Yes.
You can now consider yourself an expert in political science.
No, it's so true, man. It's so true. Phil Lavoda is coming up, by the way, at 8:05 on KCMO Talk Radio. Do not miss him. We're looking forward to that conversation. Coming up, one of the craziest contracts ever was handed out yesterday. And what does it mean for us here locally on one of the biggest stories that will not go away? I'll explain next on KCMO. Did you see this yesterday? $60 million a year given to Kyle Tucker by the Los Angeles Dodgers. 4 years, $240 million. That is unbelievable. Only Shohei Ohtani, also a Dodger, is averaging more money per year now than former Chicago Cub Kyle Tucker on an annual basis. Woo, man. He's making on average now $20 million more than three-time MVP Aaron Judge, $9 million more than Juan Soto, despite only finishing in the top 5 in the MVP vote once in his career. By the way, Bobby Witt's got to be like, I need a renegotiation here, okay? I mean, what was Bobby Witt's contract? I think he was like 20-some-odd mil a year. That's peanuts compared to these guys now. 11 years, $288 million for Bobby Witt. That was the deal he signed February of 24. So I'd take that at about $25 mil a year. That's less than half of what this Kyle Tucker deal is worth. Now, listen, you're making $300 mil. Your life's not changing if it's $400 mil. What you can do at $300 mil, you can do at $400 mil. Not a big deal. But still, this Bobby Witt deal looks like the steal of a lifetime. It's one of the great deals ever signed by a Major League Baseball team.
I think he can renegotiate in 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So that's going to be difficult for the Royals, but
is that right?
We'll love him while we can.
So there's an opt-out in the deal?
I think so.
Oh, wow. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. And this was noted yesterday on CBS by Jim Bowden, a former Major League Baseball general manager. He highlighted the fact that the Dodgers, who have been spending insane amounts of money, are likely driving the sport to a lockout after next season.
But do they have a huge advantage financially? Yeah, of course they do. But they also have the baseball minds that are matching it, and that's what's been scary for the sport. And they're putting together one of the greatest dynasties in the history of Major League Baseball. This is incredible what they're doing. And it's also going to lead to a CBA that might cause a work stoppage, or at the very least is going to cause a salary floor and a salary cap. That's the one thing about this signing that it's going to do. It's probably that tip of the iceberg that's going to change everything going forward for the entire industry.
So let's think about this from a Royals Stadium perspective. For the last several years, since the Royals announced they were leaving the K, one of the explanations for why was we need to have revenues away from the baseball stadium to make money, to pour into the baseball team, to try to stay as competitive as we possibly can with teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers. And you know what? It actually was fair justification. Baseball's economics are so screwed up, there's no salary cap. Now, there is basically a threshold where you pay a luxury tax. And if you're not a baseball fan, what basically happens is if you spend more than whatever that threshold is, you pay a percentage on top of every dollar over that threshold as a luxury tax. So they try to basically disincentivize you from spending more than whatever that threshold is. But clearly teams like the Dodgers and the Mets and a couple others don't care. They can spend all the money they want. So it's expected now that there's going to be a lockout in Major League Baseball after next season because the economics of the sport are so screwed up. You've got teams like the Royals that really have no chance to keep up consistently with teams like the Dodgers anymore. Now, you might hit lightning in a bottle, right? You might just draft really well. You might have like a 2014, 2015 run with the right guys that you draft and you scout up and you coach up, and then you have a couple of great years. But you're never going to be able to retain most of these guys given the current economic climate. If the NFL was run like Major League Baseball, Patrick Mahomes would have been gone years ago. Jerry Jones would have given him $1 billion to come down to Dallas, and he would have left. That's what would have happened. But the NFL is not structured like that. The NFL has the salary cap. All the teams make the same amount of money off their TV contracts. That does not happen in Major League Baseball. Each of these teams have their own local TV deals, which once again, if you're in LA, your TV deal is going to be bigger than Kansas City just based on the numbers.
So not only the Royals cannot afford Kyle Tucker, they can't afford Cameron Tucker. My Eric Stone Street reference from Modern Family there.
Nice job. Stone Street's going to be happy. He's driving around listening, and he's like, yeah, go John Anthony. Nice reference.
Yeah. Part Royals owner, too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Good job there, John. So this is why you've got the issues you have in baseball, and this is why, as much as I've been critical of how the Royals have handled all this, and trust me, they've screwed this thing up so many which ways over the last few years, they are right to point out one of the ways we can try to compete is by creating revenues from restaurants and office space and rentals and things like that to then dump back into the team to reinvest in baseball. Well, if we get a massive lockout, and it's expected to be potentially one of the longer lockouts in Major League Baseball history, because the players' union is going to be like, no, this is great. Guy like Kyle Tucker, who's really not elite, can make $60 million a year. Why are we going to agree to a salary cap with you guys? And the owners are going to say, we can't keep doing this. We need some give here. It could be a very lengthy lockout next season. So if you're the Royals, how does that change what you want to do with your stadium? If we're actually headed towards an environment where there is some kind of a salary cap, do the Royals really need all those ancillary income streams? The answer still is probably yes. I mean, they want to do what they want to do. Right? They want to make money as many ways as they possibly can beyond ticket sales and a TV deal and parking and things like that. They want to make all that money however they can. But is it as important if the sport is going to dramatically change to actually go out there and create this ballpark village that they've dreamed of? Does it open up the door to a Washington Square Park where they may feel like, hey, the future of this sport, we may not need quite as much ancillary income as we thought, so maybe we can squeeze a stadium into a place like Washington Square Park, which we think might be a great fit and a great setting, but just doesn't have the land space that we need. I don't know the answer. I'm just telling you that has to be part of the internal conversation that the Royals are having with themselves. The uncertainty around the future of the sport may very well be impacting what's happening right now with these stadium negotiations.
I was just looking, in 2031 is the first year that Bobby could opt out. When
All
they
right.
might have a new stadium.
So okay. So you're telling me we have 5 years to get our agents' licenses to try to figure out how to represent Bobby Witt on his next contract.
Yeah.
That if things stay status quo is going to be worth like $1 billion, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Now that's a few years away.
Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
They get the new stadium and new revenues, though. Maybe they'll try to keep them. Do a new deal or something.
We'll see how team-friendly Bobby wants to be in 2031, right? But yeah, in the meantime, I'll be my Jerry Maguire. I'll take the goldfish. I'll stand up on the floor of the studio. Who's coming with me, boys? Let's go. Who's coming with me? Wow. All right. That's a ways off there, Mark. Don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it right now. But I am here to tell you that this deal yesterday may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. And baseball may be headed for a massive lockout next season, which could then have implications on what happens here in Kansas City and what the Royals might be thinking about what location and what kind of stadium setup actually makes the most sense for them. And for those of you asking, well, why did the Chiefs want to go out to Wyandotte or build these offices in Olathe and have restaurants and mixed-use development and things like that? That's just pure greed, okay? That's all it is. It's pure greed. It's not about trying to keep up with the Giants or the Cowboys. The NFL economics are very different. It is a pure money and greed play. That's it.